welcome to episode 47 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast. 20 minutes with some of the world's top fitness professionals. I'm your host, Anthony Rennie. You can check out the show notes at stop20podcast.com. All of my shows are located at continuefit.com. You can see Strength Coach Podcast there, Stop and Give Me 20, Tell Me About That Book, Strength Coach TV. Everything is under one umbrella at continuefit.com. Please give us a review and a rating on iTunes. It helps us out. It gets the word out there. All right, for today's episode, I have on Justin Kavanaugh. He's the founder and CEO of the Sport and Speed Institute, a company dedicated to empowering America's athletes. He's worked with over 50,000 athletes in 15 years of coaching. His mentorship and guidance in not only their sport, but in their personal lives is the reason for his continued success. Coach Cav's mission is to teach valuable lessons and foster lasting relationships with his athletes that last beyond their days on the playing field. He's also the author of Man Up, the 5 areas to focus to guarantee your athletic success. And that's a great segue into kind of like I said before about his mission to teach valuable lessons and foster lasting relationships. And the book is a great way to learn how to do that. So, Coach, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ant.
All right. Well, let's get into this. What's your story?
Oh, man. So, just my journey into like fitness or training is pretty cool. It's in the sense that, I grew up a fat kid. My nickname, it was funny. I had my parents over not too long ago, and they were basically saying, you weren't fat. Stop saying that. And I'm like, well, okay. Well, what were my nicknames? Nickname number 1 was Trunk, because I look literally like a box. Twinkie, and Moose. So I don't know how any of those turned into anything, skinnier in shape. But basically, my brother, I have a brother that's 3 years older than me, and he was always shredded. I mean, he was one of those guys that, super just naturally strong. But I mean, he could do like just crazy stuff, whether it looked like Cirque du Soleil. And, so I kind of started working out with him, but then I got the crap beat out of me. So it gets to the point where when you're fat and then you get the crap beat out of you every day because you grew up outside, you get tired of getting beat up. So, my dad didn't let me bench press because he was a bench presser in high school, and then did a lot of like the firefighter Olympic meets and stuff, and just kind of beat up his shoulders. So when we first started training, it was literally like you just squat. That's all you do. And then if you were once you got strong enough and you built your back up by squatting, then you were able to start doing other exercises, and that's it. So I got into it because number 1, I was a fat kid. Number 2, I got the shit kicked out of me, and then number 3, it was like you weren't allowed to lift weights, so you had to like figure out another way to do it until he felt comfortable. So that was a kind of interesting experience, and we had like a really cool shed on the side of our house. I grew up in Miami, so it was pretty hot and humid, and the shed was nasty. It was basically you needed a tetanus shot just to go into it, but we loved it. And no airflow at all, just like one open door. And my dad had like one sign. It was a picture of freaking a clown, and it had a big X next to it. No clowning around when you're in here and you get to work. And we had a lot of fun, and that's kind of where I first learned how to like train and lift and pump a little bit of iron. But more importantly, like figure out exactly like how much you could push your body.
It's so cool. Your dad was so ahead of his time in terms of, number 1, kind of making sure that you guys respected the gym. Number 2 is like no benching. Like that's the opposite of what everybody else does when they're 12, 13, 14, 15, first getting into it. And he's making sure that you had certain prerequisites to lift. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the sense that he basically wanted to make sure that we didn't make the mistakes he did. So like it was just like the opposite of all the stuff that he was doing, growing up. And then as a kid, it's frustrating too because you look at him and he's got like a barrel chest, and it's like he's like, no, you need traps, and it's like well, that's not what we want to look like your dad when you're little. So it was like, well, okay. So it was literally it was shrugs, rows, and squat, and that was literally probably our training program for a while, other than like going outside and like we grew up in the water, so it was a lot of water sports and a lot of like grunt work too. So that's what got strong. I joke around. It's like you can't lift weights when you're younger, but we basically in the summers worked with landscaping, and before 6-7 a.m. we had lifted probably 300-400 bags of sand, mulch, or rock that were 80 pounds each. So that's what really got us strong. And then when you start applying that in the weight room, it really kind of built a pretty good foundation.
Cool. Now, and a lot of people say, like, and I ask this question, who was your superhero growing up? And I do say in when I send you guys the message, it's like, try not to be your parents if if it's just that memory of, your pops now that you have of him or during the time. But I'm kind of feeling like your dad probably was that superhero.
He wasn't. No, he
Wow,
wasn't.
awesome.
And seriously, I mean, I joke around about, my dad and a lot of the influence he had on me because he had, right? And my mother as well. But my superhero growing up was my great grandmother, Haiti. She was, she passed away when she was 98, straight from Cuba. I mean, she literally probably one of the toughest people I ever met. She's 4'11". So cool story. And I could say this now, right? Because, it's funny. But she ran numbers for the mob for years. She had a hairdress, like a salon in New York, super small boutique salon. She did dresses for big box places and really, really, high level celebrities. And, it was interesting because she ran numbers for the mob inside the salon that she did basically dress alterations and then their hair. And, it was super cool. She would tell you all these stories. And then if you ever kind of crossed her, she pissed you off, she would grab you. And she's 4'11". She's strong as, any powerlifter you ever meet. So that was pretty much my superhero growing up. I mean, more importantly, I just wanted to be as kind of intriguing as she was because she was, smart as a whip at 98 and she could talk to anybody about anything and go really, really in depth. So she was like, Dos Equis, the most interesting man in the world. That was my grandma Haiti.
Nice. Now, did you know that she was running the numbers when you were younger, or did it, like?
Oh yeah. So my uncle Artie and Artie, which you gotta love, just their names. They taught me how to gamble. They taught me how to play cards. And there would all be the stories because that was her. That was so that my Titi Ricky, Titi Hilda, it was my great aunts, my mother's aunts. So it was my great grandmother. So that's who kind of watched me growing up, when I was kind of away from the house in any way. So all we did was gamble. And so she basically taught me how to basically play the dogs, run the numbers, kind of learn cards. And the coolest part is 98 years old. She was into fitness. For her 90th birthday, she asked for an ab roller.
Oh my God.
Yeah, dead serious. So
that's awesome.
That's what she was all about.
What about now? Who do you look up to now, superhero now that, anybody out there that's doing some great things that you feel like, you kind of want to emulate?
I mean, look, I'd say my wife. I think she's just, a badass Russian, and she'd probably cut me if I didn't tell you this. But I would say the person that I think I look up to because it's also good to be around is Kyle Maynard. I became friends with him, a couple years ago, and he really, it's crazy. It's like, I've had all these back injuries, my body's a mess, but you're around a guy like that, no arms, no legs, just kind of grinding through and has such a good look on life. You have no pain when you're around somebody like that.
It's so true. You look at that and you're like, you know what am I complaining about?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was joking with him one day. He'd kind of jumped on my back so we could kind of carry him and walk around. And I was like, "Look, man, I'm not like one of your other friends and be nice to you. You better hold on." And he just decks me in my face, and he's like, "Okay, cool. Well, I'm not your normal friend that you need to kind of help out." And I was like, "That's the type of person you want to be around. That there's this mutual respect for who they are, without this level of handicap, no matter what it is, whether it be me intellectually or for him physically, limitations or whatever that may be."
Very cool. Now, talk to me about who you're trying to be a superhero to. You have, the facility, the Sport and Speed Institute, and you work with a lot of young athletes. Obviously, you're a new dad in May, and obviously we always want to be a superhero to our kids. But who are you trying to help with your message as well?
So I think that, you hit the nail right on the head. There's no question that the first priority is my son. But the cool part about, influencing kids is that you could artificially bump the needle in their life by telling them something. They look up to you, whether they want to be like you or they have just respect for you in a different way as a coach. You could tell them, "Hey, man, oh my God, I've never seen a kid do that, man. You must be strong. You're so strong." Yes, that might be a little bit of a stretch. But these kids don't even have the confidence anymore. You know, a lot of it is because a lot of parents are not being honest with them about the good and the bad. So I find that sometimes you could artificially bump the needle, and that changes the kid's life.
Well, let's kind of segue this into, you just wrote, your book came out, Man Up, the 5 areas of focus to guarantee your athletic success. And this is more, I feel like this is more of a book about the person, not so much the athlete. And you talk about in the beginning that you believe there's a problem in our country and that you feel like it's a generational problem. Do you feel like it's a generational problem, or do you feel like it's a parent problem or a coaching problem? Talk to us about
it's
that.
all of those above. I mean, it's all of above. I mean, I think it stems from the fact that, like society has changed, like our culture has changed drastically, where a lot of just like what we have in the gym, right? The exercises used to be filtered out, the dumb exercises by way of trying it in the gym before it got out, and then you worked with it on others. Now, social media, someone just presses it and then it gets exposed. It's the same thing within our lives where, you were able to be coached by multiple different people in your business. So, or in your life. So like as a kid, you were able to, go to school, and then the teacher was able to at least grade you and coach you. Your coach was able to kind of reprimand you and keep you disciplined. You went down the street and somebody you got out of line. Their parents was allowed to either spank you or at least, keep you in check. And then when you got home, you got beat twice for that, because all the other things, the embarrassment that for what you did wrong, and then the embarrassment for them having to handle it. So I extremely think that it's an entire society problem and that it all works together. But for me, I think it all stems with the fact that parents have been very almost, empowering their kids in the wrong way. They basically lack the ability to provide honest feedback because they don't want to hurt their feelings. But by doing that, they've told them that they're great at everything so that the kid never knows where they stand. So then they're delusional when a coach tells them they're not good enough.
Do you think that coaching, when they have parents like that, how much, obviously our job is a lot harder as coaches, but what can we do as coaches? And do you think we can even, at that point, can we even help? Because obviously they're around their parents so much.
I mean, I feel like it's our obligation to. So, I mean, if we can't help at all, why do it? Right? But if we have one kid, then it spreads like wildfire, right? Like there's this level of infect positivity or infect, discipline. It will start to happen over time. So like for me, it's all about like community and competition, right? If we could create a positive environment for competition, but it's very honest. See, competition, you can't have competition without it being honest. Because if you basically, at the end of the day, you don't keep score, but you're competing, I don't know how much kids are going to want to do that. But that is what I think drives community, and that kind of like that need to bond is the need to bond over the aspirations or work ethic or things like that. So I think we have to do it whether we think we can or not. There's an obligation that we have as a coach to do right by those kids.
Absolutely. Now, earlier I was talking about, one of the things that you like to do is foster relationships beyond the playing field, right? And kind of, you like to be a mentor and guide your athletes in their personal lives. How do you give us some samples? Like, how do you do that?
Well, I think that if you look at things in perspective, right, the athletic career is going to be shorter, as a journey than their life. So at what point do we have to say, okay, where's our win? Like our win is based upon the scoreboard. The scoreboard is going to be probably 10, 15, 20 years later when the kid makes the right decision. But, early on when I first started like in the NFL combine business, I had all these athletes that wanted to come down to Miami because it was where I was, and kids would leave from Wisconsin, Nebraska, different areas, and they would want to go down south. But with that, there's a lot of like opportunities for fun and things that they weren't exposed to in different areas. So they got into a lot of trouble. And then at what point, like, who are they going to call? Are they going to call, their coach? Are they going to call their parent? Are they going to call their agent? Are they going to call their friend? More often than not, they're going to call the guy that they've entrusted with the most, because they know that at the end of the day, he might be mad at you, right, or disappointed, but he's going to still take care of you. And I feel like, getting those phone calls, although whether it be 2 a.m. or, an unfortunate situation, I would much prefer it be me, right? Because then I could protect them in a controlled environment than them get exposed on ESPN or on the news. So, I feel like I would rather be there for that kid in a time that's super inconvenient for me. So it doesn't really change the trajectory in which his career goes, because in today's day and age with social media, you probably can't get away with it as much, but it could change, your value to, any school or team or employment by way of a poor decision one night. And I feel like if those kids are going to lean on you, then I think that there's a lot of value that you offer to them more than it is in the lifting and running.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right, now it's time for the Stop and Give Me 5 segment. You ready for this?
You got it.
All right, well, you had your first son in May. Congratulations. What was your kind of biggest surprise about being a dad?
Emotion. I didn't know how to describe it, and I probably couldn't tell anybody how to, describe the emotion, because I don't think it existed until you have your first child. I mean, for me, when my son was born, I had an emotion that I had never had before, and that was a real a wake-up call for me.
Great answer, because I was thinking about this, so many people tell you, it's almost like the Grand Canyon. People tell you how nice the Grand Canyon is, and then you go there, you're like, oh my God, I've seen pictures, but this is ridiculous. And, it's kind of a similar idea, so good stuff. Now, this is the everybody wants to know. I need 2 sleep tips for new dads.
So coming off somebody who just got 2.5 hours of sleep last night, I don't know if I'll give you the best answer, but I'll tell you this. Number 1, your wife's sleep is more important than yours, period. And it's probably 10 times more important if she's breastfeeding. So whether you like it or not, it's not fair. But the reality of it is that in this initial part of our parenthood, it's not fair at all. It's not even 80-20. She's doing 99% of the work, even if as much as I can. It's just because of the amount of, what mom's able to produce that I can't. So mom's sleep is way more important than yours. So I would say just managing your stress and prioritizing the things that you do is going to be the most important thing. Make sure that she could get her sleep first, then sleep when you have a chance. Most people don't do it. Take advantage of it. Even if you want to spend time doing something else, prioritize, a time for you.
Good stuff. All right. You coach so many athletes, lots of combine guys. What do you miss most about playing football?
A lot of people say the locker room. I don't miss the locker room as much, even though I love it. I miss the fact that for 2.5 hours out of a day, there's nothing else in your life. When you're on the field, you could have, parent issues, you could have financial problems, you could have people that are in your life going through cancer or battling some really ugly stuff. And for me, football was a way for me to legally, break the law and do certain things to other people that you couldn't do on the street, and it was a way for me to kind of escape from a lot of the things that, were maybe going on in the rest of, my life. I think what I miss the most is the ability to go out there and not think about something for 2.5 hours out of a day and then get back to the real world. Because it is a game, and the cool part about it is when you're in it, you can't think about other stuff.
Absolutely. Good stuff. 2 bourbons with anyone from the past. Who is it?
Oh, man. I would say Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie was who I'd want to have a couple bourbons with, because I know he has the ability to adjust and be like 007. So it'd be interesting to see his what he's like in a different setting.
Cool. 2 people not in the fitness or sports world that we should follow.
Ooh, I would say number 1 is Estelle Perel. She had just released a new book, but her first book, Mating Captivity. There's a few people in the industry of people that we follow, not necessarily sports or fitness, that are more impressive in person than they are either in writing or in their work. And her work is really impressive, but when you meet her in person, the depth of knowledge is just so intriguing. So she's extremely impressive. And I'd say the second one I think a lot of people don't even pay attention to is Seth Godin. I mean, he is obviously huge, but he's such a big thinker, and the ability to pose questions that make you that provoke thought is such a vital need, in my opinion.
Absolutely love him. Good stuff, Coach. What project are you working on right now that's kind of getting you really excited? I know you always have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, I think there's two that I'm super excited about. One is this the women's speaking only conference that we're putting on in February, and it's just because I wanted to basically provide the platform. That's it. I mean, if a female did it, I think what ends up happening is there's an agenda involved, and people are doing it. Look, we're not going to make money from it. We're going to say, hey, there's an opportunity to learn from people from the fitness side, the business side, the strength portion, the strength side of things, and the performance, both private and public sectors, and we could all kind of get in a room and make an impact. I think that's kind of cool. But also hey, there's your platform. Go do it what you will. And then the second thing I'm super excited about is we're really rolling out with me and Jeff Moyer of DC Sports Training. We both had a very similar, mentorship through Dr. Yuri Vanchansky and some other people in the field. We're really kind of developing this, curriculum for sports performance from, understanding the biomechanics of speed. And what we're doing there, I think, is just at an advanced level. So I think a lot of people kind of get into the market of coaching information at different points, right? So this would definitely be more of an intermediate to an advanced, but it breaks down, human performance at a very high level, but it also makes sure it's very practical as well.
Very cool. Looking forward to that. We'll have links to any of that as well when we'll make sure on our social media that we let everybody know about that. All right. What's the letter to your younger self? What advice are you going to give yourself?
So I have a quote that I say all the time, and I would say continue to live by it, but enjoy the moment. So the first thing I would say is this: my mother used to always tell me. She used to get really worried that as my entrepreneur spirit, and I always want to, kind of have this huge ambition, she would say, she used to get mad and worried that I'm never content. So I used to tell her, I said, Mom, I'm not content with where I am. I'm content with the path that I'm on. And that used to be my driver, right? It's I think I'm going in the right direction, but I want more. But sometimes you need to kind of stop and enjoy the moment, because there's some really cool things that you can never take back. So my football career ended abruptly, and I couldn't control that. But guess what? Whether I like it or not, that was my last play. So I think I need to enjoy those more often. Good
advice. Great stuff. Well, Coach, it's good that the youth of America, at least in your area, is under your guidance. And we appreciate you coming on. Thanks for Man Up is the book right now that's out. And Coach Cav is doing so many great things. So, Coach, thanks for coming on.
And thanks for having me, and thanks for what you've done just for myself and for the industry, man. Huge impact.
All right, appreciate it. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 47 of the Stopping in Me 20 podcast. Thanks to Coach Kavanaugh. Make sure to check out all the links to all his stuff at continuefit.com or stop20podcast.com. Don't forget, please subscribe, leave us a review and a rating. It really helps us out. My name's Anthony Renna. Thanks so much for stopping by.